Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy, in particular Final Fantasy going forward. Like, you know, for example, 16. Obviously, like, what would the game be like? Currently at this point in time, no details about 16 have been put out there. Who knows if Square-Enix is even currently in the process of developing it? I feel like they probably would have said something, but, you know, from what I've read online, it's mainly just, I'm assuming, you know, they're not really working on it currently just because they're probably working on so many other projects. Obviously, they finished, you know, just rolling out Kingdom Hearts 3, so maybe there might be extra stuff along with that they might be working on. There's also finishing up everything with 15. Also, there's the Final Fantasy 7 remake, but to be fair, that's like not supposed to come out till like 2020 or 2021 because I think like last time there was kind of a big update about it, at least to my knowledge, that I picked up on was the fact is that they ended up scrapping a lot of that, so the project got pushed back even further. So there's that. Plus, there's probably other projects that maybe I'm not aware of, or they're keeping hush hush that they're also working on as well. So FF16 doesn't seem like it's a big thing. I mean, especially considering there's, like I said, they're still rolling out stuff from 15, so I'm not too surprised. But nevertheless, it just sitting here thinking about it, I just was like, I'm curious what they would do with Final Fantasy 16. It's kind of interesting because that's not something I ever always thought about, like, oh, what's the next Final Fantasy going to be like? But to be fair, like, now that I'm older, looking and recognizing just how different, like, Final Fantasy has constantly shifted, not just over the years, but just from next game to next game and how different they are, Like even comparison, like going from 7 to 8 character model wise, it's insane to me when you think about that. But then like even talking about combat wise and stuff like that, you go from like 10 to 12 to 13 to 15. It's like, holy crap. Like obviously because I brought this up recently in a video where I talked about JRPGs and turn-based combat, and it's kind of an interesting thing because I kind of got some stuff wrong because I didn't realize like how much of the Final Fantasy series was like 7, 8, and 9, the whole aspect of like if you don't act, it's an active turn-based combat system. I didn't realize that because I guess in my head the one I always went to was 10, so I just assumed every other Final Fantasy was like that because it's been years since I played any of the other Final Fantasies, so I forgot about that. But apparently that active combat is like from 7 to 9 it's kind of always been, I'm not 7 to 9, from 4 to 9 was kind of the combat system in that regard, and then 10 was the anomaly, and 10 too, and I only learned this recently because because obviously I talked about this recently, but I've been playing through the Final Fantasy X remaster, and I just finished it up a couple days ago and started 10-2 a couple days ago, and I was like, oh wow, I completely forgotten, so 10 is like the anomaly in that regard because obviously they went back to active battle system in 13, and we get an argument with 12 as well, but 12 kind of did things a little differently, so it's kind of an anomaly all in its own. So, but nevertheless, all that's kind of got me thinking about what they're going to do with 16, like obviously where they stand, like I don't know, like especially as both forms of combat are solidified in my head, whether it be like a 10 where it's like it's your turn, the enemy can't attack until it's your turn, like a wait, turn-based combat game, or like 10-2 where it's an active turn-based, or did 15 which is not turn-based at all. Like it's a whole thing of like with all that fresh in my mind, I don't know which one I would prefer like 16 to be. Would I want it to be like I feel like I'd want it to kind of be similar to 15 just because it's so different compared to the other Final Fantasies in that regard. So I probably want it like that because it also allows you to kind of do a lot of crazy things. But to be fair, I'd be fine with them not doing that because I'm like, maybe you could make the argument like it plays into how Noctis's abilities work, so it really leans into that aspect, especially like the whole, how he summons weapons and how he, teleports and warps all over the place. So I don't know, maybe they'll take that concept and build upon it for the next game. I don't know. I always feel like, because I also forgot to talk about Type 0. Type 0 is kind of different in its own regard too. It's kind of like FF15 and Kingdom Hearts has kind of got that similar kind of battle mode to it. Probably more so closer to Kingdom Hearts than it would be FF15. So that's a conversation also on its own, but then also like, well, what's the world going to be like? Is it going to be like a 15 where it's like it's an open world game, and even if it was an open world game, will it be exactly like 15 where it's like open world for a good chunk of the game, and then as this game progresses you get deeper and deeper, you kind of like funnel the story and the characters in so it becomes more of a straight shot to the end, it gets more and more linear as you go? Or will it stay open world the entire way? Because most Final Fantasies work in reverse, where it's like you start off very linear, from a very linear point of view, and then it kind of goes open world. Eventually, when you ultimately get like an airship or whatever, you have more access to the world and stuff like that. You can kind of go wherever you want to and do what you need to, type of thing. But even in that regard, you're still limited. Like FF15 was like massive overworld and situation and stuff like that, relatively speaking massive, you know. So I'm curious like how they would handle that. Like would they go back to the more linear aspect, you know, because I think they probably won't, just because of the whole 13 situation, because 13 was always chastised for being very linear. So not unless they decide to kind of find a middle ground in that, it's kind of a whole thing. And since I am talking about that too, like what's the setting going to be like too, because like a lot of Final Fantasies tend to lend themselves, I guess, to kind of like this, I guess, almost medieval fantasy aspect. I mean, some more so than others. You take like, you know, 12 is the most like dark ages, you know, knights and stuff, but also like having technology and stuff. So there's a lot of the Final Fantasies that kind of blend science fiction and fantasy, but obviously lend more to the fantasy side of things. So like you take 15 is probably, at least to my knowledge, the closest to like the real world they've ever gotten in a Final Fantasy game. Because I think even 7, when I think of 7, I think most people think of this, they think Midgar, and I kind of forget like, oh yeah, there are like small towns and villages in a lot of Final Fantasy 7. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy I'm not that familiar with. Even take 10, the whole Spira situation, you know, versus Xanarkand, even though Xanarkand's part of the whole thing. I'm curious like what kind of aesthetic they would go to. I'd be interested if they kind of went like more futuristic, because that's not something, they dabble in it, but they never go full on, you know, because I guess you could make the argument like FF15 is kind of, it's more so modern day, you know, it's not even futuristic. In certain regards, yes, but it's never something they fully embrace and lean into as futuristic stuff. So I'll be curious to see if they did that. And there's also like the party mode too, like not the party mode, but like party members. Like, is it going to be a, you know, game where you can like, you know, will it be like a Type 0 or something, or, you know, like previous Final Fantasies where it's like you can switch your characters? Because Type 0 is different because you would only take a certain number of characters with you on missions and stuff like that, where every other game, Final Fantasy game, you have access to the entire party. You just got to decide when and where you're going to shift them out and stuff like that. But if you take something like 15, where it's like you mainly played Noctis, but obviously eventually you can switch to other people, but eventually they got their own DLC. So it's like, where would they handle that in that regard? Would you be playing one character the entire game, or would you like, you know, be able to play whoever you wanted to? Like, there's a lot to kind of think about. You know, because 15 kind of broke a lot of like aspects of Final Fantasy that I think you would come to know and think of. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I guess 8 was technically the most futuristic of the Final Fantasy, at least that I'm aware of, because like the gardens and the fact that they can fly, and even the cities were more modern. So I feel like it was more modern like FF15, but had an even bigger futuristic aspect to it. And to be fair, I don't really remember a lot of 8 like that, but obviously I know 9 was the most like medieval of them all. Like that, I feel like 9 kind of went back to more older Final Fantasies. I feel like, at least with my limited knowledge, seemed like they were more medieval times type of aesthetics, and 9 definitely has that. And I always felt, never really knew where exactly to put 13, because 13 had like a futuristic aesthetic, you know, with the whole cocoon situation, but then there's Pulse, and then there's also the fact that you take 13 too, and there's the whole time travel aspect to it as well, so that adds a different layer to it in itself. So I don't know, this is all stuff kind of like, you know, running through my mind. At the end of the day, I'd love to get to know your thoughts about like what you would want to see in Final Fantasy 16, you know, whether it comes to like, you know, would you want something medieval? Would you want something futuristic? Would you want turn-based combat, not turn-based? Open world, linear? Like, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.